You've heard the headline 100 times by now. Every company's demanding everyone back. Out of the suburbs, out of the neighborhoods people scattered to in 2020, and back into a downtown office 5 days a week. That's the story everyone's telling. Except drive around here in Massachusetts and look at the actual buildings. Mid-market office parks with half their windows dark at 9 in the morning. For lease, signs that have been up so long they've started to fade. Big corporate complexes that, from the parking lot, look like maybe a third of the spaces are taken. If the mandate story were true, if everybody really was back, that's not what you'd be looking at. So which is it? Does everybody actually want people back in the office? Or is that mostly talk? And if a lot of people simply aren't complying, what's actually happening to them? Here's the top line number, and it's the one that should surprise you. Contrary to popular belief, office occupancy nationally is still only around 55% of where it was before the pandemic. Not full recovery. Barely over half. That's not me eyeballing parking lots. That's badge swipe data across more than 2,600 buildings nationwide. Nearly 90% of companies have some kind of return-to-office policy on the books. But the buildings themselves tell you the policy and the practice are two very different things. First, the number that doesn't fit the story. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. If you assumed remote work has been in steady retreat since the mandate started, the data says otherwise. Remote work peaked around 33% of all U.S. workdays back in 2021. It then dropped hard, down to about 18% by October of 2022, right as the first big wave of return-to-office mandates landed. That's the moment everyone remembers. That's the remote work is over headline. Except it didn't stop there. Despite 3 more years of mandates, telework has actually climbed back up since that low point, sitting around 24% by early this year. Higher than the 2022 trough. Not lower. The mandates didn't produce a straight line back to the office. They produced a dip, and then a slow crawl back toward where things already were. Here's something else. The front door doesn't match the building. Here's the part that explains a lot of what you're seeing in those parking lots. While actual remote work has been quietly climbing back, what companies are advertising has done the opposite. Fully remote job postings have shrunk to somewhere between 4 and 6% of everything listed. 77% of new postings are fully on-site, 19% hybrid. So the front door of the job market looks like full-on office culture. But once people are actually hired, a lot of that flexibility comes back through the side door. Informal hybrid arrangements, managers who don't enforce the policy on paper, days people just don't come in. The posting is the mandate. The building is the reality. Those are two different documents, and most of the coverage only reads one of them. One question I've wondered about is this. What happens to the people who don't comply? This is the part with real teeth. When companies do enforce strict return-to-office policies, the research is consistent. Voluntary turnover jumps by around 14% in the months after the mandate lands. And it's not evenly distributed. Women's attrition rises by roughly 20%, compared to about 7% for men. Skilled workers and senior managers leave at meaningfully higher rates than everybody else. Read that last part again, because it's the actual headline. Return-to-office mandates are disproportionately pushing out the people a company can least afford to lose. Not the average employee, the senior ones, the skilled ones, the ones who have options and use them. There's one place the mandate genuinely worked, and it's instructive precisely because it's the exception. The federal government's 2025 return-to-office order cut hybrid arrangements from 61% down to 28% almost overnight, and coincided with a headcount drop north of 10% for the year. But federal workers had limited alternatives, a captive labor market. In the private sector, over that same stretch, telework barely moved. That's the real lesson. Mandates work when people have nowhere else to go, and mostly don't when they do. So next time you drive past one of those half-empty office complexes, you're not imagining it, and you're not looking at a failure of the mandate to get announced. You're looking at the gap between what a company says on a press release and what 15,000 employees quietly decide to do about it. The mandates are close to universal on paper. The buildings tell you what's actually true. As you go about your journey, remember this. The job market is broken, but you're not.